Okay, you're going to need to open up your packet to page 6 and 7. We're going to be studying supply. Keep in mind that your unit test is open note. So the better your notes, the better your test score. So it'll be really good for your benefit that you fill in these blanks on your study guide. Again, packet page 6 and 7. Okay, so we're going to have to shift gears in our mind. We've been thinking, as we normally do in real life, as consumers, customers. But for this next part of the unit, we have to put our minds, use our imagination to think in terms of what how businesses react to market incentives like prices. Businesses act in the opposite way that you and I do when it comes to raising and lowering prices. So we've got to start imagining ourselves, pretend for the next week or so that you are a business owner and what is best for your business. So that is the topic of supply. Again, get into that mindset of the business owner. So here's the first definition on your study guide. Supply is the quantity that businesses are willing and able to supply at all prices. It's represented by the entire supply curve. Whereas quantity supplied is the quantity that businesses are willing and able to supply at one single price, and it's represented by 1 point on the supply curve. So just like we learned the difference between demand and quantity demanded, it's the same sort of logic of the difference between supply and quantity supplied. So the law of supply works in a different way that the law of demand does, as I said before. As price goes up, businesses like higher prices. That's hard for us to wrap our heads around because we do not. We're consumers, we're customers. High prices make it hard for us, but businesses like the higher prices for the goods that they sell. It helps them to make a bigger profit. So, as price goes up, the quantity producers are willing and able to offer goes up. They get more excited about their product when the prices for their product goes up because they have a greater opportunity for profit. So this works the opposite way of demand. Similarly, as the price goes down, the quantity producers are willing and able to offer goes up. What kind of relationship is this? Meaning one thing's going one direction and the other thing is going the same way. Is that direct or indirect? Or inverse. So the law of supply works in a direct manner. It's a direct relationship. Price of good or service increases, the quantity businesses are willing and able to supply increases, and vice versa. Ceteris paribus. That, again, goes in your study guide next to law of supply. Now, the reason for this, as I've hinted at before, is the profit motive. And this goes in your study guide. Profit is the money remaining after all costs have been met. Producers want to make a profit. They like profits. So, in the next line in your study guide, the profit motive, producers' desire to make a profit, is a critical factor in explaining the law of supply. Those higher prices make it possible for them to make a higher profit for their good, and therefore they're motivated to make more of the thing if the prices go up, unlike us. So, more things to put on your study guide. We've seen this logic before. The supply schedule is a list of the quantities, or a table, a list of the quantities of a good or service that suppliers or producers are willing and able to offer at various prices. The supply curve, that's that last one on your study guide, a graphical representation of the quantities of a good or service that suppliers are willing and able to offer at various prices. And this is a graph. So the curve is a graph. Supply schedule is a table. So let's try this out. Is this a supply curve or a supply schedule? Is this a supply curve or a supply schedule? Now, What similarities do you notice between the supply curve and the demand curve? What are some of the differences that you notice between the supply curve and the demand curve? Hopefully, one of the things that you noticed about the difference is moving from left to right, the demand curve is always pointing downward, but the supply curve, when moving from left to right, is always moving upward because the supplier likes higher prices. The more the price goes up, the more the supplier is interested in supplying that thing. Whereas us customers, the more the price goes up, the less and less we're interested in buying the thing. So we're working in opposite directions, us demanders and the businesses supplying what we demand. So graphing quantity supplied, this works similarly to graphing quantity demanded. To graph the quantity supplied of a good or service at a particular price, draw dotted lines to indicate the intersect point between the specified price and the quantity supplied. Then label the price in the left margin as P1 and label the quantity supplied in the bottom margin as QS1. Now, to graph a price change, draw dotted lines from the new price and the new quantity supplied and label them in the margins as P2. So the next price would be P2 and the next price would be P3. So in this image, take a look at this graph right here. Which is the most current price? P1, P2, or P3? P3 is the most current price. Okay, so let's read, see if you can use the same logic from the demand section of this unit to this. What has happened to price here? Okay, we see that price has gone down. What has happened to quantity supplied here? We see that quantity supplied has also gone down because the price went down. That's how suppliers work. What has happened to price here? Here we see price has gone up. What has happened to quantity supplied here? Here we see quantity supplied has also gone up, again, because suppliers like the higher prices, they're willing to supply more at those higher prices.